Hello, everybody.
What's up?
How's everyone doing?
Morning, guys.
Yo.
Morning.
What's up?
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Okay. So Mike is unfortunately out sick, but that's all right. 'Cause
Oh, no.
I know.
Aw.
But we got Dutch and we got Christine, and David's going to join us here in a little bit, and we're going to talk about Minus One, and I guess whatever else y'all want to talk about, but probably just mostly Minus One, I would imagine. Everybody have a good Thanksgiving? Yeah.
It was very delicious.
Fine.
Turkeys
Very
were
filling.
moist.
Quiet.
Very moist. God, I hate that word.
Well, you don't want a dry turkey.
Ugh.
Anyway, so yeah, Minus One. If you haven't heard, there's a new Godzilla movie that just came out, and it's pretty good. And I figured we could all just kind of shoot the shit and talk about that for a little bit. And before we do that, though, it's doing really well. So I mean, I don't know if you're like paying attention to it,
Yeah.
but it's doing like really well.
Is it top 3, it said, right? At the box office?
Yeah, it's probably going to make its
Awesome.
budget. Yeah, it's going to make its budget back this weekend just in the U.S. alone. So that's pretty incredible for a Japanese Godzilla movie in the year
Oh my gosh,
2023.
yeah.
Subtitle
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because when me and Dutch went and saw it on Wednesday night, there were a bunch of kids that went into the theater. And I remember I looked over at them and I was like, dude, these kids better not act like fools in this movie because I'm not trying to have that.
I had a few
I know.
cars and they were actually pretty well behaved. I was shocked. I thought they'd be jumping around, but they were into it, which was rad.
Yeah, they were really well behaved and they were like super into it. And
Yeah.
and then after the fact, we in the lobby, I overheard them all talking to each other about how much they liked it. And they were pretty young. I felt like they were probably all under the age of like 11, and some of them were
Wow.
even younger than that. And the movie's pretty intense.
Yeah, it is.
Especially the opening is pretty intense, I thought. So like my 30-second review of the movie is that it's fantastic. I can't believe how good it is. I expected it to be good based on the previews and the trailers and everything, but I didn't expect what it was. It's really, really good. It was awesome that I went in with pretty much no spoilers. So this is probably going to be a spoilery show. So if you haven't seen it, I mean, it's going to be hard to avoid talking some spoilers. We can try to avoid like the bigger ones, but Godzilla's in it. So, and it's really good. It's probably one of my favorite pissed off versions of Godzilla. I don't think he's ever been like as vicious as he's in this movie. And I actually really was not rooting for him at any point. I mean, he's awesome in it, but at no point did I hope like he won or did like everything he does is terrible. So he is really evil, and the human characters are really, really good, well done characters. And I think, in the best Godzilla movies, the character is always important, but like I really rooted for him in this movie. I thought he was definitely the villain of the movie. And so yeah, that's my little blurb. Who Rich, you just saw it last night, so you're the one person who I haven't talked to about it at all. So what are your thoughts on it?
So good morning, everybody. First off,
Good morning.
Still processing it, and yeah, still processing it. I saw somebody ask if you could basically sum up the movie in one word, and I can only come up with gripping. There was a lot of times I was sitting there actually clenching my fists, grabbing my jacket. Literally every scene that Godzilla was on the screen, literally gripping my jacket. Definitely the scariest version I've seen of Godzilla, the most pissed off version, and just intimidating. Like Like there were so many times I'm sitting there like, this is not a Toho film. Like, who made this film? So, like, this is no, like that's how good it was. The fact that I got to see it with my mom and dad, who were sitting right here with me, my brother, my 2 nephews, and another friend of the family, the hairdresser, courtesy of my mother. And, yeah. But non-Godzilla fans, not on our level, So they all loved it, and that was awesome. Like, just when the Toho logo popped up, my brother, who was sitting like 5 seats away from me, leans over, is like, "Dude, that brings back memories." I'm like, "Yeah, no shit." When the Godzilla theme kicked in, my mom leaned over and looked at me, and of course, I started getting glazed over in my eyes and whatnot. Like, but mainly because the theme music hit, but more so because of like how powerful Godzilla is in this movie. Like, very intimidating. And scary. Like, I think all of us can agree. It was like watching Jaws in some parts, especially in the ocean scenes. The dog's misbehaving. It's fine. But the human characters. Oh wait, Brian, you said before the real villain of the movie was Godzilla. Absolutely, but I also feel like War is the villain of the movie, or PTSD. Watching the character Koji, like watching him go through the motions of what was, he was a kamikaze pilot and dealing with the repercussions of the war and the shame that he was wrestling with after he came home was like riveting. So great human story. Yeah. Loved it. I could ramble on. I'm gonna save that probably for the rest of my review and whatnot. But yeah, nailed it. Loved it. 10 out of 10 for me. 10 out of 10 BAMs.
Yeah, good. Yeah, 10 out of 10. If I was gonna rate, I'd probably give it like a 9.5 out of 10. It's damn near perfect. Nev, what'd you think, man?
I'm on the same par with Mr. Fresher. I mean, the fact that it was like I don't want to say a serious movie, but there was so much emotional and mental like tension with this giant CGI creature, and then with war, and then how Japan treats its civilians and its military. Like, there's a lot of themes within it, but like at the end of the day, like, it is just a Godzilla movie, right? But this guy found a way to successfully make this like a film that had so much of these tension points and have this CGI monster, and it's actually pretty incredible to see that. I love the fact that it was kind of like his fan film almost. Like, he did the Always 2, and I think he did Always 1, but that Always 2 dream sequence was like his first thing he wanted to do with Godzilla, and he kind of like finally got to that point, right? And there's a lot of like I don't want to say fan service, but like little nods to previous films, especially with like GMK and 54, and he did it in a way that wasn't fan service, like it actually meant something to the plot. So it's just a really well made movie. Like, the fact that it's a Godzilla movie is awesome, but like if Godzilla wasn't in it and was just a random other monster, it'd probably be still a pretty fucking solid movie. I give it 9.5.
Yeah, I agree
for sure. Always wanted to see more Godzilla, but I think for what was in there, it was still awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just think it, like you said, man, the fact that they can still make a good movie with Godzilla in it, though, and not just a Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
So that was the thing. Like, Toho's made tons of just Godzilla movies, just for the sake of making a Godzilla movie, to keep, their copyright in the consciousness, and to keep selling toys and coffee mugs and T-shirts or whatever. But this doesn't feel like that. This doesn't feel like it was made specifically for that. I mean, obviously they want to make money off of their character, but I don't feel like this movie was made to sell a bunch of toys.
No.
And I also think that the fact that it was made for $15 million and it looks how it looks, and it's done and it's a period piece, and it looks like it is set in the actual period that it's set in, and it doesn't look like when they're in bombed out Tokyo that they're standing in a green screen room, and it actually looks like they're standing on a set, is like so huge. Like, Marvel and Star Wars and DC and even the legendary Godzilla movies, all their budgets are all 10 to 15 times what the budget of this movie was.
Right.
You know, and I thought the CG, I mean, it wasn't perfect. It definitely had a few spots here and there, but I mean, honestly, the CG was good. You know, is it on par with, you know, like Godzilla versus Kong CG? Maybe not, but I personally think this Godzilla looked a hell of a lot cooler.
Yeah.
And this Godzilla would wreck shop in the legendary. I mean, his you know, his nuke is awesome. Christine, what did you think of the movie?
I
Did you
absolutely
cry?
loved it.
Did you
I
laugh?
did
Did you
cry.
cry?
I definitely cried. I also went into it without any spoilers, and it definitely took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting to be as invested. I wasn't expecting the character storyline to be as strong as it was, because normally I'll cry in a Godzilla movie over Godzilla. But this one I cried over the humans and the emotions that they portrayed, just astounding. And I don't know, like this, like you guys have said, this, if Godzilla wasn't even in the movie, still a fantastic movie to go see. If it was another monster, whatever it was. So it's funny how it's like you go to see a Godzilla movie and you come in with an expectation of, oh, it's gonna be monster mayhem and all this kind of stuff, and you come up with a really freaking great storyline and a great cast. And like Nev said, I also was expecting a little more Godzilla action, but when I was thinking about it after watching it the second time, I'm like, you know, that's kind of like my own personal expectation. Just the film as a whole, I mean, it was sprinkled in there pretty steadily throughout the movie. So you'd have, you know, some Godzilla, the human storyline, which really progressed, I feel like. And yeah, the whole story with Koichi, and I cried when he cried with his PTSD flashbacks and the trauma and all that. Like, that's very touching. And oh
Yeah.
no, like if you're not a Godzilla fan, you could still go watch this movie and totally enjoy it. 2 hours and 5 minutes. It didn't seem like it at all. So I've seen it twice now, and it just flew by. And it was really nice to see afterwards everyone in the lobby or outside talking about the film. People, we would sit, and there's no after credits, but I mean, there's some cool sound effects, whatever, after. But it was just nice to see everyone in there. Like, everyone was talking about it afterwards, how good it was. Like, there's older people, younger people, everybody, like, really enjoyed the film, and it made me so happy. Of course, I cried at the end, and then when the theme song came on, I started crying, and Joe looks over at me, he's like, why are you crying? It's not even sad. I'm like, the music, like, when you hear that in the theater so loud, oh my gosh, it's just, I don't even know, it's just like an automatic reaction. I loved it.
Yeah.
I want to see it again. I want to see it as many times as I can in the theater, because the experience is in the theater, I think, with the, you know, the big screen and the sound and all that. It really makes it feel that much more intense and dramatic and terrifying. Like, Godzilla was so creepy. Like, that's the one thing that I took away from him, besides him being terrifying. He has creeped me the heck out. Or I'll be quiet now, because I'll just keep going.
Yeah. Well,
but
when
like,
he
the
shows
whole
up at the
presence.
beginning,
Yeah.
when he shows up at the beginning, the Godzillasaurus, I guess. First off, I didn't expect him to show up that quickly.
Oh, me within the first 5 minutes.
And then when he does, and then dude, that is fucking scary. Like, that's the scariest Godzilla you've ever seen. That one
Ruthless.
specific sequence right there.
Well, Brian,
It's awesome.
when that happened, because I remembered you basically
Yeah.
took the words right out of my mouth, because I leaned over and you literally said, "This is the best thing Toho has done with Godzilla in years," and I was like,
Yeah.
that was exactly what I was gonna say. Like, this sequence is so freaking cool. Like, just, I mean, I guess you would call it the Godzillasaurus, but like, yeah, that was a great opening to the film. Just the way, like, you know,
Mhm.
they turn the spotlight on and then boom, he's there, and it's like,
Yeah. And you said to me, you were like, they made him move so well, because, you know,
Mhm.
the last time we saw a Toho CGI Godzilla, it looked like a statue on wheels that somebody was pushing through the city. So, you know, and the difference between the two, between the Godzillasaurus and Godzilla, is pretty cool, because the Godzillasaurus jumps around and it's nimble and it steps on people and it's, snapping at people, and it runs. It almost looks like a dinosaur from like Jurassic Park. And then when he's fully Godzilla, when he's out of the ocean, he's just like this lumbering wall of death. And then in the ocean, though, he's actually possibly more scary in the ocean.
Yeah, I think so. The ocean scenes are like definitely very intense. I clenched my teeth so many times. Like I came out both times with a headache because I'm just like, oh.
Yeah,
so good.
So John, John, I saw the movie with you, so I know your thoughts. But what are your thoughts? And John, for everybody else, just did a really cool YouTube video where he compares the musical cues from the what would you call it, like the pre-production?
Yeah, it was because when I got the soundtrack, obviously, I'm always going to love the use of the Ifukube theme, but it was kind of strange to me that they were just like straight re-recordings of like the old cues. I'm happy that they actually did that, and instead of like what Shin Godzilla did, which was just kind of pull these decades old mono recordings and just pluck them into the film. But I was like, that's kind of interesting because you don't know, like if you just listen to something on an album, you don't really know how it's gonna go in the film, but the cues are pretty much used verbatim as they are presented on the album. So watching the movie, it was kind of obvious that it was just following the temporary score. And the like for instance, like at the end when they're the ships are the captain of the ship makes the speech, and then they're going into the second use of the Godzilla theme. You hear it like that was temp tracked from Symphonic Fantasia 1 from the Evening of Special Effects Music concert in 1983, and you could tell that because that first performance is the only version that actually has like a when it's like da 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 da, and it just slows down right before it just hits the march. And I took both versions and lined them up, and the tempos match like exactly, like so precisely. So it's obvious that scene was edited to that piece of music, and I just thought it was interesting how closely not the composer Naoki Sato followed the tempo and placement of the temporary score pieces. But as far as the film itself, it's funny because it reminded me more of Godzilla Raids Again than anything else, because it's like the main character is this pilot who suffers from perceived cowardice or like insecurity, for different reasons, obviously. And Godzilla is sort of dealt with without the use of the military, without the use of like super science or like a big. It's just ordinary people using ingenuity to kind of find a way to kind of dispatch him. And I liked it. It was great. I like the fact that Godzilla was scaled down. You get a little bit more of a personal story, because like the bigger and bigger you make Godzilla, I feel like it gets so less personal. And like I don't know if you could have done this story, especially with the way that they sort of they try to take care of the problem. I don't know if you could have done that with like a 300 some foot tall Godzilla. This one was like very much aware of people and hated people. And we saw that, and that's the kind of Godzilla I like. So I'm still trying to figure out how I would rate it, where I would rate it. It's at least a 7 out of 10 for me. Might be an 8 out of 10. Like I said, the things that I didn't care for that didn't really do much to like sack my enjoyment of anything. I thought that the positives in the movie far outweighed the negatives. And just very quickly, this movie has probably the best sound mix ever of a Godzilla film.
Yeah.
The sound was so like not even just like with the depth of the music, but the sound effects, the way they work together, and neither one of them ever drowns out the other. And this like for instance in the ocean, when they detonate the mines, those things were shaking the theater. Like those explosions were, and like every time he would fire his heat ray, like that was a fantastic sound mix. I was so impressed by that, and I was impressed by the cinematography, because this looks different than like any previous Godzilla film, and it just looks huge and cinematic. I was really impressed.
Yeah. I think what you said about the score shows the level of care that was put into it, because previously they would have just slapped the music over top of whatever. And the fact that they actually edited the movie to fit the score and weren't just like, oh, the Godzilla march goes there, and just put it there. You know what I mean? And actually took the time to be like, well, the score slows down here. Maybe we should cut this here. And so, I mean, there's a whole level of care of this movie that is so beyond what we're used to with Toho in the past.
And I was going to say, do you remember when the march kicks in? Do you remember how many people's heads we could see sort of nodding along? And
oh yeah,
like that
Yep.
piece of music is becoming transcendent. It's becoming a piece that everybody knows.
Yeah.
Like the main Godzilla march,
Yeah.
It's iconic. Yeah.
My mom
It
was
is, like-
sitting in the theater going like this.
Yep. The funny thing about that is, Mike Russo, who is out sick today, didn't like the fact that the Ifukube score was used in the movie. And I replied basically to him, I'm like, well, you almost have to, because it's like the Bond theme at this point.
Yeah.
Like you almost expect to see it. And I know there have been Godzilla movies where that isn't used. And but I mean, it is like the equivalent of the James Bond theme. It's probably one of the most recognizable pieces of character theme music out there, really. I mean, most other, you have the Avengers theme. That's one of those themes that instantly like conjures up what it is. But I think Bond and Godzilla are the two. I mean, I can't think of any other ones.
Probably Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Jaws.
Yeah. Yep. Jaws.
Yeah.
Jaws is almost a parody of itself now. You know what I mean? Because it's been, same thing with like the Friday the 13th and the Halloween and stuff like that. But all right. Now look who's here to give us his review.
Oh, I can't wait
Morning,
for this
David.
one. Hi, David.
Good morning. Good morning,
Hi,
everybody.
David.
I've been
It's,
looking forward to this.
It's nice joining you from beautiful, sunny Southern California for the first time.
In your new house.
Congrats.
I am in my new house, our new house, and it's, as you can hear the echo, it's pretty empty right now. I mean, you can kind of see,
Oh wow.
That's so
There's
crazy.
and there's the dogs. I mean, we're still waiting for the furniture, and I'm not sure how long I'm going to be able to stay with you because we don't have any Wi-Fi. We're using a mobile hotspot right now. So
Well, you give us your review and you hang as long as you can. And let's get your review. I love that shirt, by the way.
Thank you by
That's
our
awesome.
own John Bellotti Jr. This
That's
is
really
kind of
cool.
like a one-off that he made for me. I'm pretty stoked about it. But anyway, it's great to see everybody. And I got to see it on Friday, December 1st with Mr. James Hartman, which was really nice to see it with another fellow Godzilla person and my husband, Keith, who Keith, by the way, absolutely loved it. He loved it. And it's the polar opposite of his response to Shin Godzilla, because when we left the theater at Shin Godzilla, I said, so what did you think? And I think Rich knows the answer to this. He said, I think I never want to see that again. So this one was quite the opposite reaction. He really enjoyed it, as did I. I got a little bit worried from a couple of spoilers that I saw. I always get worried when the hype train is so strong, coming on so strong and fast that I'm not going to be able to get on board. You know what I mean? If that analogy works. But it lived up to all of the hype and then some in my eyes. This was the one I've been waiting for. And I think several of you know that we had a conversation years ago about what we would want in a Godzilla movie. It was probably in reaction to the legendary film. And I said, I know John Ruffin was part of this conversation. Rich, you may have been in it too. I said, I want a movie to go back to Godzilla's origin. Terrifying, scary. I want to be afraid of Godzilla. I want it to be a period piece, check. I want Godzilla to be scary, check. I want some reference to Odo Island, check. Even though there wasn't enough for me, I would have liked more backstory on the mythos of Godzilla being known on Odo Island. But that's just a really small nitpicky thing. Anyway, so how are we doing this? Am I just going to say this my overall score first, and then?
I mean, just give your thoughts and your story. Yeah.
So I was literally shaking when the movie started, when the Toho thing came on, because I'm like, oh man, I better love this one. I really want to love this one, and I did. I loved it. I mean, I really loved it. The human story was as compelling as the monster story, maybe even more so. I genuinely felt for these characters. I'm not a crier, as many of you know, but I found myself, like, my eyes welled up with tears in a couple of scenes, you know? I was a little bit worried about the Odo Island Godzillasaurus because of that stupid Bandai horrible figure that was leaked out. And
It does not look like the character.
No, it doesn't look anything like it.
Not at all.
And I think all of you know that I absolutely loathe the 98 film. There's no redeeming qualities for me in that movie. And I'm like, why would you make it even remotely resemble that mess? Yeah. And I was worried about that, but that didn't come to fruition. Did I love the design? No. Did I hate it? No. Was it dark? Yes. And was it violent and awesome? Yes. So that was fine. And then once we saw the final form of Godzilla, it was just like, man, this is Godzilla. I mean, he had all of the attributes of the classic Godzilla that we all know and love. He didn't have too many things going on, like too many extra powers that they gave him. I don't know. I'm so tongue-tied because I'm still sort of processing it. But that attack on Ginza, holy shit! If I could say this on your show.
No, you can say whatever you want.
Man, that was like, I mean, what did you guys think? Were you just like blown away when that happened? It was like tragic and terrifying and realistic, and it had some homages to the 54 in there.
Yeah, I like the reporters on the roof.
Yes.
Yes.
Which felt and sounded almost word for word like what there's. I know having read the subtitles in both versions, they're not saying exactly the same thing, but
it's
the
pretty
cadence
close.
And everything.
Yeah.
The cadence to how he was saying it, it's obvious that they were like, you're doing this in the movie. You're gonna do it just like this guy did it.
Totally.
So that was cool as hell. What I liked about it was, okay, so in all these movies, especially now, I mean, in the 60s and the 70s Godzilla movies, and even in the 90s movies, him using his ray, his atomic, his heat ray, whatever you want to call it, was never treated like a huge deal until the Legendary movies started making it a bigger deal. And then in this movie, the first time he does it, you don't get to see him do it because it's under the water.
Yeah.
But when he does, but it looks awesome, and you know what it is. You see the water turning blue, and then the effect of it is crazy cool. And that's the one where you're like, "Holy shit, that was awesome!" And then when he does it again in Ginza, you're like, "That's fucking terrifying," and I don't want him to do it again. No. And then when he's, you know what I mean? And it's like it makes you completely change how you feel about it.
I was just going to mention that another reason that I love this movie so much is that the historical accuracies that are kind of sort of inserted in there with the fantasy. That looked like a nuclear bomb exploding.
Yeah.
And all like the whole, like if you watch any like of the stock footage from, nuclear tests, that the USA did in Arizona and the Bikini Atoll, which is a real thing that really happened. It looked just like what would happen with an atomic bomb being dropped, and even down to the black rain that fell on them.
Rain, yeah. Yep.
And the thing that I was talking to Keith about, I'm like, the horrific reality of this movie is all those people who are exposed to that are going to die of radiation poisoning at some point in the near future.
Yeah.
So
probably yes. That's what I was thinking.
That's something I wanted to say too. The smattering of historical accuracies in that period piece really, was the icing on the cake for me too. So I wasn't 1,000% like, okay, this plan, what's the name of the plan? I can't remember it. Or what's the sinking of Godzilla and then the rise quickly.
Yeah.
It has a name to it. But anyway, I was like, ooh, I don't know. That's a little bit out there. A little bit like simplistic, but and then when there was a scene where they're talking about how they're going to try to kill Godzilla without the help of the Americans and the Japanese government, and I keep interrupting myself. There was a little bit of talk about it being disrespectful to America. It's like they were just as disrespectful to themselves than they were to America.
I thought they handled it fine.
Right? Yeah. And anyway, when he revealed pulled the curtain off of the model of what he was going to do. Keith's like, the oxygen destroyer, and I'm like,
Yeah, well, it was very much.
we all thought that.
It was very much like that.
Yeah,
we all thought that, but
I'm actually happy it wasn't.
me too.
Yeah, so am I. But I mean, it gave you that feel. You know what else about the model? Think about the model that he showed, that little wooden Godzilla model.
Godzilla raids again.
1955.
Godzilla Raids Again.
Yes.
They used those in Godzilla Raids Again.
Yes,
I
they
love
That was the
did.
first thing that popped into my head when they
But-
showed that model.
But when they executed the actual plan, and I thought about it after the fact, I'm like, wait a minute, this is 1945. They don't have a lot of sophisticated technology at this particular time in history. So they have to do something a little bit more simplistic, right? Scientifically based. I mean, they didn't do the Toho super science, like no micro black holes or anything like that. But it was great. And then when I heard like the Faroe Island song in there inserted into there, I'm like, okay, that's an interesting choice, but I love it.
I loved it. It fits
And-
so
It
well.
fit. It
I know,
fit,
Rich.
yeah.
Rich, of course, you were like, oh my God, they're using Mothra versus Godzilla, a suite for Mothra versus Godzilla in the Ginza attack. I'm like, yes.
Oh, yeah, I love that. I mean, I had listened to the soundtrack prior to seeing it, and I was
Yeah,
like, they're doing it right. They're using.
I had no idea that they were going to do that, and I completely disagree with Mike Russo. And like what John said, you need.
Damn you, Mike.
It's no. I love Mike. You know that,
No,
but you have to have it in there, and as John said so eloquently, not just as an afterthought. It has to sort of like blend in with the rest of the score, and it was perfect, and it was just the right amount. It wasn't overkill. It wasn't like, let's just throw this in there to satiate the hardcore fans. It blended in with the new score harmoniously, in my opinion. And man, I just can't. And I had no idea about the ending. Like, I didn't see any spoilers about the ending or anything like that. So that kind of took me by surprise. And then we could probably talk about this like later on, about that last little bit where you see the scar on the Noriko's neck.
Yeah.
Did you guys already
Let's let me read. Let's look at some comments and then we can dive into some of that stuff too. So this one, Thirsty for Chicken, best human characters in the franchise. I wouldn't go that far. Best human characters in the franchise since 1975. I would probably go that far.
That's hard.
I would say
There's a lot of memorable characters.
I would say since 1954, because this is a different type of movie than all of the ones past 54.
Yeah.
There was like so little humor, if anything. There was a little bit of like teeny tiny bit of humor.
I thought the ship captain guy was pretty funny.
The kid, that was
but you needed that little tiny bit of stuff, because
I love that character, by the
it
way.
was
The ship
so heavy.
captain that's a peak Toho character right there, because he always had a sort of a bemused expression on his face, and he sort of barked things out, and I love that kind of character like that. So
I thought they did a great job, like establishing the friendship between the four of them in a really short amount of time too. It was actually believable.
Yeah.
The scene where they're all having sake outside of the little outdoor eating area there. All that stuff was really cool.
And there were so many, what's missing from a lot of the Toho movies, that I love. There really aren't any character arcs. The characters kind of stay the same throughout, which is not a big problem. But there were so many character arcs in this film, like I can't even count them. I mean, I can't remember the character's name so well, but the woman who was the neighbor whose family. She totally had a character arc. Noriko had a character arc. Tachibana, what's his name?
Tachibana.
He had the biggest character arc in the whole film. Like, I had a feeling that he was going to point out that escape parachute thing. I had a feeling that's what he was doing. But and I go back and forth thinking, would it have been more impactful if he did actually die?
I would have been pissed if he died.
I would have been pissed too, but would it have been like a really hard choice for the filmmaker to make? Like,
yeah.
Because the whole theme of it was survival.
Survival.
So
You're right.
I think it
to
would have
take
been.
care of your family.
Good
Yeah,
point.
so if he had
Good-
died, it would have been.
Good point, Christine. And Keith and I, when Noriko kind of got blown away by the atomic blast, both of us kind of turned to each other and said, "No."
Yeah,
Yeah,
I wasn't
well, yeah.
expecting that.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
Oh, he didn't. Keith actually yelled "no" out loud. So.
Oh.
And you have
What
to
were you gonna say,
understand,
Rose?
we saw it at in this big Regal theater in Rancho Mirage, and there was 2 other people besides James, Keith, and I in the theater at 2:10 in the afternoon. So you could hear everything we said. It was like echoing in there. So, but anyway, no, please go on. I want to hear what you guys think because I missed the beginning. I wasn't listening in the beginning.
So I'm going to chime in. What I liked about Tachibana's arc is it was like redemption. I mean, I think it was redemption for Kochi too. But what I liked specifically about Tachibana was he was so dead set on Kochi completing his mission as a kamikaze pilot. So towards the end with the ejection seat, which I love how that was played out. Where like I kind of knew it was like an ejection seat. Because like, why are they like subtly focusing on that language that was on the back of the seat,
The German,
which wasn't in Japanese, wasn't in English? So I was like,
German.
that's a swerve. But
Totally, 100%.
Yeah. So it was like once we found out that he ejected and Tachibana was, we were seeing his raw emotion. It was almost as if it was the realization that, hey, we didn't really need kamikaze pilots because if the government actually spent the money and the funding on ejection seats, we didn't have to sacrifice so many pilots in the war. So it was like there was another way for life.
That's what I picked up too. Like it was a big fuck you to the Japanese government of like you force us to sacrifice our lives and our family for your country because you're too cheap to put a button in. And that was like I thought that was more of a wake up to the Japanese government versus like a disrespect to the United States government. I think
exactly, Nev. I mean,
for sure.
that was huge.
it was a pretty heavy anti-war movie, and
It was.
they even had like the dialogue in there where I think it was I forget, what was it? Toto, the doctor, or whoever it was said.
Was he an actual doctor? Because they called him doctor, but then everybody else called him Mister.
Well, I mean,
I thought they were kind of making fun of him with the doctor title because he says, "I don't like that" when they're on the boat.
You might be right about that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But what there was dialogue in there where there was like, our government has treated lives too cheaply and stuff like that. And to Rich's point, that was, I think, my favorite part about the character arc is their forgiveness.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
like it's because it's about forgiving yourself, but it's also about like Tachibana forgave Koichi for what he perceived to be was the deaths of all the men on the Odo Island Air Base, and then obviously Koichi can then kind of forgive himself. That was like the whole idea of like, is the war finally over? I liked all that. It was a really, really good message, I think. And I'm actually really surprised that Toho kind of allowed this to be made, to be honest.
Yeah, a little bit. I think that whole kamikaze thing, I saw it with my wife, and she was like, you're more versed in Japanese culture to me. She's like, but I didn't understand why everyone was treating him like shit at the beginning of the movie. And that is a very distinctly Japanese thing, especially of that time. Like, there is no conceivable way on earth that in August whenever he lands that plane on Odo Island, which is like the beginning or the middle of 1945, that I am ramming my airplane into anything for Japan. Like, if I'm like, there's no way, because the war's already over, like they told him. It's just that's a different way of thinking. And then to be like, well, I'm ashamed because I went home, isn't something that, and survivor's guilt is a thing. He has PTSD. That's a thing. But I mean, the whole kamikaze thing is such a very Japanese thing. And every time he tells somebody he was a kamikaze pilot, they all get that sort of look, or they look at each other like, okay, but why are you alive then? So.
But at the end, as you all just said, at the end, there is this element of forgiveness. And Christine said it right. That's probably why the director wanted him to survive and Noriko to survive. because
I think
they have been through it, and so many people died. Actually, we saw people die in this movie, like really horribly, and and even like we were talking about the Godzillasaurus attack on Odo Island. Like Godzilla was not eating them like Jurassic Park. He was just fucking killing them.
He was just killing them. Yeah.
He was just like he tossed them in the air, and
yeah,
that was the best part. Because like he didn't do that till he got shot at. Like he wasn't just going around like brutally people. He was provoked and then he defended himself. So I thought that was really interesting, kind of like a man type situation.
And he, just unlike the Godzillasaurus, like there was like no forgiveness or like allegiance to that band of soldiers at all, none whatsoever. So it was a little bit of.
So this is a good comment. This comment here about his eyes, because there's a shot in the end. This is one of the first things I texted Nev when I was actually driving and texting, which I shouldn't have been on the way home from the theater.
Legal.
And I texted Nev.
Damn you.
There's a shot at the end of the movie where it pans around him in the ocean, and his eyes are so fucking crazed. It is honestly one of the scariest shots of him in any. It is the scariest shot of him in any movie. That's
where he had like basically like the bends and he like just like.
Yeah, it's after they had pulled him up and he's getting ready to nuke the entire fleet.
That was my favorite scene. My favorite part of the whole movie.
Really?
Yeah.
I loved that they gave him a decoy ship to fire at.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
Cool.
That was so cool.
Very smart too. I think we're talking favorite parts. Like I'm going to go back to the Ginza attack. Like there was so many iconic shots of Godzilla. Like the one shot from like a low angle reminded me of the 1984 when he first appears at the nuclear plant. You're just kind of looking up and you just see Godzilla like up there. Yeah. I mean, and that whole city destruction. I mean, I think I was talking to Leslie a little bit yesterday. He said he wanted that scene to be a little bit longer, or at least put one.
It's pretty short.
One more scene of city destruction of like a different city in Tokyo. And
pretty short.
Interestingly enough, Godzilla first appears in Shinagawa, and that was the first time Keith and I ever went to Japan. We stayed in Shinagawa, so that was kind of cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So
what's
your favorite
part, David?
Definitely the Ginza attack.
Okay.
I mean, it's exactly what I had envisioned for a Godzilla film, a modern take on Godzilla. Thank you for my water. Thank you. It's so dry here. We have to like hydrate like constantly. It's crazy. but anyway, that scene, the only problem I had with it was it didn't go long enough. Like I just loved it, and I don't know. There's so many scenes that I loved. And what did you guys think about the regeneration process of Godzilla? I did not know that was going to happen either.
Yeah,
I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it. Well, and then I didn't expect at the very beginning when the mine was in his mouth and then they just blew half his head off. I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, shoot. So in my head, I'm thinking maybe this is just the baby one. And then all of a sudden he starts growing back. I was like, oh.
No, that's so funny. It's like that scene happens and it's like, okay, roll credits.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, in the first half hour, they already blew half his head off. All right.
Let's see what
let's go down.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Let's go down the list and see who's. I mean, just name your favorite scene. Go ahead, Dutch.
Well, my favorite scenes were everything in the ocean. Everything in the ocean was so good. Loved just the way that they sort of conceptualized, like when his fins would just kind of come up out of the water and stuff, and just like the way he was so formidable in the ocean, as he should be. And I think that was where he was at his scariest. And like we were talking about the eyes, because I think I might have mentioned this to you at the theater, Brian, but it was like his eyes were rendered so well. They had like when he was like chasing the boat in the water, like it literally looked like he was like this vicious predator, and he is just like locked in on this ship, and he's gonna get it. So that was my favorite part. I loved to talk about the regeneration aspect. I liked the fact that everywhere he regenerated left a scar for the rest of the movie. Like he had that mark on his cheek for the rest of the film. And I thought it was cool to do it that way. And I liked the fact that using his nuclear breath hurts him. Like it was actually like a cool new way of like, because it was almost like he had no control over it. Like it was his defense mechanism, and the only thing he could do was aim it. But he had like no real like precisional control over like what he did with it, and it was I liked it. I liked the fact that they came up with new ways to present Godzilla, to present his power, and it just, you have to do that to make things interesting, and sometimes you get mixed results with that. But I thought this movie, the new concepts were great.
Yeah, Nev, what about you?
Favorite part, I'd probably say when he's using his atomic breath in Ginza, or the big smog that just like, it's just Armageddon. I thought that was really that whole scene.
Me too.
Was incredible. I think the only thing I was not pissed about or whatever, but like that was half the trailers that we saw was the Ginza attack, so you kind of knew that was coming. So I think that's why a lot of comments like, I wish it was longer, because we already saw half that shit for the past like 6 months.
For the
Good point.
But I mean, like that scene is just so menacing. That whole how they're shooting, and now you see the people running, and they're actually like between his feet. I think the one thing I really thought was a nice touch is when he stomped, the asphalt actually went up as opposed to went down, buckling.
Yeah,
like,
that was cool as hell.
It was just like the little like details I thought was like just fucking A+. But I think that was my favorite, the atomic breath in Ginza.
Yeah, what was yours, Christine?
Definitely. Well, it is hard to pick because I really loved the Ginza attack, and like John said, how whenever he used his atomic breath, he literally burned his own body. It was so powerful, the nuclear energy that he had within him. But definitely my favorite part, I think, because the one I keep going back to and thinking about is the very end, when the ships pull him up out of the water, and he's so enraged, and he has just like that roar. It's a different kind of roar. Like when he first comes up, he has like just like this painful, angry, ticked off roar, and oh gosh, that pan around shot where he comes up out of the water, he's powering up because he's so mad, and that shot where he's just like arms back, those white bulging, just furious eyes. And then he's powered up, and then that 20 seconds of just complete silence as everyone thinks, oh shoot, we're done for now. And it was just amazing in the theater too, because like the whole theater was just dead quiet for that whole 20 seconds as we're all just like, but that, I don't know, that to me was, that's the part I keep going back and thinking about. It was just so beautifully shot and terrifying, and I loved it. That was my favorite.
Yeah, I think I'm with John. I think my favorite parts are all of the ocean stuff. The first ocean scene, the way he comes out of the water and gets that boat, is awesome as shit. That whole sequence is so tense, even though we had seen parts of it in that little preview that they put out a couple weeks ago, where the cord is cut for the mine. But in context, it's so much different, especially after you see how he destroys that first boat. And then when the destroyer shows up and he attacks the destroyer, the second time I saw it, the way when he gets shot and falls back, it almost is like he's completely latched onto the boat, like with all of his arms and legs, like he's like locked onto that boat, and it's just going to tear it to pieces. So that's really awesome. The way he destroys it is incredible. And then the finale, to me, it's funny because I did want more destruction. I was like, oh, he's going to go to Tokyo and they're going to have to lure him out. And he doesn't really, he gets to the outskirts and he steps on some small little village or whatever. But then I forgot how intense that finale is. And it's not a short finale. It goes for a while, and it just keeps ramping up and ramping up and ramping up as everything they do, doesn't quite work out the way they intend it to. And then it peaks with, when he's, like you said, when he comes up out of the water at the end there, and he's so pissed off, and you're like, none of them they're all going to die. And so that whole sequence, that's like a top like 10 Godzilla sequence, just period, in my opinion. It's just fantastic how good that was done. What about you, Rich?
Definitely going to piggyback you and John. The ocean scenes were intense, especially the first two ocean scenes with the mine and when that destroyer came in. But back to the mine that exploded in his mouth, like, first of all, the
Yeah.
cinematography in this movie is probably the best of any Godzilla movie I've ever seen.
Mhm.
For sure.
Any Godzilla movie,
Yeah.
you know, legendary included, excluded, however. So that just made those ocean scenes that much better. But and it's hard to pick like a favorite scene, but one that sticks out was that mine blowing up in his mouth, because technically it was like he was almost dead, if not, because his eye was rolled in the back of his head. So when his brain cells kicked in again, and his whole eye rolled back in, like, surprise,
Yeah, that's
motherfucker.
awesome. His eye,
You know,
yeah,
loved it. Loved it.
yeah, it's
Um,
awesome. It's awesome.
And then like you're saying about him making it to Tokyo again, it's kind of like, you know, Yamazaki was saying, I'm not going to give you a full buffet your first round, you know. So I could work with that, like, because it's making me crave more, you know, and I would rather crave more than be fully stuffed with this movie, and, like, you know, so give me more.
That's a good point. Hey, can I add a little thing to my explanation of liking the Ginza scene? I guess me and Never, the odd man out here. I loved the water scenes too. Don't get me wrong. And now we know why Godzilla's dorsal plates are so big, because they needed that for the water scenes. You needed that impact to see him coming towards you with that ominous row of dorsal plates coming. So anyway, every Godzilla movie, or many of the Godzilla films, have scenes of the Japanese populace running away from Godzilla. Never have I seen the confused, panicked faces, like, what is going on? They took the time to actually show the faces of the citizens saying, holy shit, what is this? Because that's human nature. Before you run, you want to say, wait, what is going on? Is it an earthquake? And then you see the foot come down, and then they start panicking and running. And the way that they, you know, sort of choreographed those fleeing scenes, that's the best I've ever seen too. And you know, and then it just gets back to the attention to detail, the costumes, the buildings, everything was from 1945, or it seemed like it was, like, period. And you know, I just thought it was just incredible. And you know, that whole scene in Ginza was just so tragic, and it actually mirrored them dropping a bomb on Ginza. Like, instead of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, it's like, okay, now there's a bomb dropped on Ginza, but guess what? It's a bomb that wasn't dropped by the Americans. It was a bomb that was created by mankind in general. And it's just there's so many levels to this movie that I need to see it a second time. I only saw it once.
Yeah, so did I.
And I need to go back and see. Like, John, I didn't notice the scar on his face remained. I didn't even see that nuance, and shame on me, because I usually am really good at that kind of thing.
Well, I also like that when he uses his atomic breath, it scars his face, which is an awesome little
and I need
effect.
to
Also,
I need to see
you said
that.
something about his dorsals, so I
want
to ask about his dorsals. What did you all think about the dorsals, like, raising up before he used his?
Oh,
What do you think? Because when I saw that in the trailer, I was like, I don't know if I like that. And then in the movie, I liked it. I especially liked it in the water scene when he was swimming and they were raising up. I thought that was pretty cool. So that's a cool new little addition. I don't know how.
I mean, I loved it. I thought it was really, really cool, because it almost makes it like there's, again, it's like consequence to his body for using this thing, and just kind of like that was an idea that was actually in I mean, people don't really talk about it that much, but that was sort of done in GMK very briefly. If you look the first time when he's looking down at the parking lot and he's like snarling, and you know, he starts to ionize the air. If you look at his fins, they start moving. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I read in the Japanese Giants GMK issue that Shinada built the suit with that function in it, because they wanted to kind of have the fins be able to, like, move right before, like, you react, like, right before the heat ray was fired, and it just sort of petered out in the film, and you don't really get much of it. So I actually thought that was cool, because again, it's really, really hard to find new things to do with Godzilla.
I think I read that GMK is his. I think I read that GMK is his favorite movie. the director's favorite
It
movie. Is
shows.
that
It's
correct?
like
Yeah.
so many little things in here from it, like the regeneration scene at the end to how he's portrayed, the size of the design of the feet. Like there's just
Well,
so
the character Tachibana, that was the character's name in GMK.
yeah.
Oh, that's right. When I
Yeah.
first saw the scene, damn the trailers. I wish I didn't see it in a trailer or a spoiler. When I first saw that, I'm like, oh shit, this is going down the road of like a legendary with the whole like, oh, we got to make it bigger and more of a spectacle. But they didn't overuse it. And like all of you just said, it takes a toll on his body when that happens. And in that sense, I was totally okay with it. And what did you guys think about the size of the dorsal plates? Were you okay with that?
Didn't bother me.
I had no problem with the design whatsoever. I think
Big, I like a big dorsal plate. So I
Me
mean,
too.
And I think it helped balance him out because he was very big.
He was
So,
big.
like he's got the big legs, which I guess is how guys. But I guess the way he's built, I thought it kind of helped balance him out. As
And
opposed
you guys,
to-
the overall design, like what is your take on the overall design of this Godzilla? The final form.
I thought it was awesome.
oh,
I mean,
it's awesome.
Probably my top 5 designs for sure now.
Oh yeah.
I think the jury was out for me for a while. And then once I saw it in the context of the film and I saw how he moved, I was like, this is great. It's exactly what we needed to see for this Godzilla. And I just still wish the head was a little bit bigger. I mean, because I think all of you know my initial longing was to see like a storyboard type Godzilla or at least more of a 1954 like hybrid kind of thing, which it kind of was in a way, but it took elements from so many different Godzilla designs. It paid homage to a bunch of them that I really do like. Ended up liking it a lot in the end.
I was gonna say the head
Yeah.
actually looked to me like almost like a Heisei style, like a 1990 style head, or like a Neo version of that, which I liked. It had a lot of personality. Like like we talked about the eyes before. I overall liked it. I think it works better. I think I like it better in context of the film than just on its own. I think it's really important to see how it functions in the movie.
It is the most
Yeah.
anthropomorphic Godzilla face I've ever seen, ever. Like it looks like it emotes emotion, and I guess you really can't do that as well in suit acting because it's you have to really use CGI to get those expressions, and it was so anthropomorphic and so like you could sense when he was angrier than normal and when he was in pain, and I think that was a really nice touch for the face anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And
What did you think of the actors? I put this comment up here because I thought the little girl was fucking adorable.
Yeah.
I want to
I don't know if she was a good child actor or actress because she didn't have a lot to say. It's hard to judge acting in these movies, but I thought everybody looked the part, and I thought, I mean, again, it's hard to judge when it's in a different language, obviously, but I mean, I feel like this was one of the best acted Godzilla movies in a really long time. Also,
for sure.
It didn't seem like it was crammed with pop stars and stuff like that, which is nice. Which was, I know, a
100%.
thing they were always keen on doing in the 2000s movies and even in some of the Heisei movies, was just jamming as many pop stars as they could find in their movies for added commercial success. So it was nice to see that. I thought everybody was good. I thought, again, my favorite character was the ship, the captain. I also really liked the doctor. I think there was a chance to do some cliched things with the characters that they didn't do, like the young kid. I was like, oh, this kid's going to die doing something stupid. And I'm really glad they didn't, do any of that kind of cliched stuff. So I thought the acting was all around really good.
The kid's story, he had like his own kind of little story arc too. I kind of like that because he was like he didn't get to participate in the war and he wanted to. And there's that scene in the beginning on the boat where Koichi gets so angry at him where the kid had said, I wish the war had gone on longer. And he's so desperate to like prove himself. And then at the end, when he shows up in the tugboat, I was like, oh, he's so determined to help his country and his fellow like friends any way that he can. So I really liked that.
That was a great scene when everybody starts checking in. Where this boat from Yokohama, this one from. It was
Oh
like
yeah.
this is so cool. Like they're all coming together and they're just citizens at this point to try and fight Godzilla.
Well, tell me this, John. Did you not make reference to the Rise of Skywalker when all of the ships come at the end? Rich, I know you did. It's like, okay, here's the. I don't know that was a little bit Hollywood for me. A little bit like one part that I didn't actually love because it's like, okay, here comes the fleet. I understand the point is like we have to do it ourselves because we can't rely on the Japanese government or the Americans. However, that was a little bit Forrest Gumpy for me. Sorry.
Albert agrees with the Star Wars reference there.
Yeah.
So.
I think that didn't he say Star Wars is like one of his favorite film franchises? So I think it was probably just another Easter egg from him about that.
Probably it didn't,
I don't know if
it
you saw
didn't
that
ruin it for
tweet.
me, but it didn't ruin it for me, and it was great. It was fine, but again, like they had such a tone that they were going for the whole movie. It sort of took me out of it a little bit. It took me, okay, now I'm not watching a documentary, I'm watching a Hollywood movie or a big budget movie. And that I don't like when that happens to me. I want to be just completely sort of like engaged, engrossed in what I'm seeing and not being taken out by references from other films. But again, teeny tiny thing.
Well,
That part.
did you see the tweet that I posted yesterday? It was somebody had tweeted Godzilla Minus One. The first act is Jurassic Park. The second act is like Jaws, and the third act is like Dunkirk. And I thought that was really accurate, especially the Dunkirk part because it really does have that feel of like. I don't know if any of you saw that movie. It's a great movie, but there's a sense of just like overwhelming desperation at the end, and that's how the final act of that movie feels. It feels so desperate, and I thought that was a really accurate. And it wasn't meant as an insult. It was meant more of a compliment to the movie, which is all, dude. I am so psyched about the amount of love that this movie is getting from the general public. And it's got like, I don't know. I don't watch a lot of regular TV. I watch like Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune at night because I'm old.
Me
but
too.
like,
Those are what I watch too.
But like, I don't think that there's been advertising for this movie on regular TV. I think the only advertising has been on social media, and that's it. There was never any theatrical trailers for it. I don't think there's been like if they actually put and now you can see Toho is getting behind it because every day on the Toho Facebook page, and on their Reddit page, they're putting out new ads that have a lot of the clips from the various reviews where they're the really high reviews that they're getting. So I wonder if they're going to put this movie out for another week or two and see if it has legs because the fact that it's probably going to make its budget back this weekend is crazy. It's crazy. It will be the highest ranked, the highest grossing live action Japanese release in the United States history after this weekend.
Wow. I know. I feel like this whole thing with it is kind of unprecedented because David had said earlier, like the hype with it, like it's hard. Like you're like, oh, because every time a new Godzilla movie comes out, of course we all get hype about it, and then like for it to keep going, and then it's just like, wow, this thing is really picking up here. Like everybody loves it, whether they're a fan or not. The critics love it. Like I've hardly seen any bad. Nothing bad.
The key is that the non-Godzilla fans like it, and that's the big thing. You know, like Rich, you went with a bunch of pretty much non-Godzilla fans, and they all loved it. So,
now
to me,
the real exciting thing for me, Brian, is that Toho now sees that this type of take on the Godzilla films, like a serious, scary period piece, is resonating with the fans and the non-fans. So hopefully we can see maybe a Rodan standalone movie, like in this sort of fashion, or I just worry. My worry is it's gonna go too fast, like too much, like destroy all monsters too quick. Like I would love it to sort of slowly amp up before we get into the whole
If
And I
we've
know,
learned
I
anything
know I'm against,
from
I'm my own thing. Like, I love Godzilla against the military. I love monster against man. Monster battles are great. They're fun. I love them. But I think the most compelling movies to me and my top movies are always man versus monster and, the consequences of that. So I would I love to see, Rodan, next. Yes, I would love that.
I don't know if I would, honestly.
You don't know if you would?
I don't know if I need it. I don't know if I need anything else. I think if this movie stands, if I know anything, it's that Toho and the executives, and not just Toho, all movie executives never learn the correct lesson. The correct lesson isn't you don't need to spend $300 million and put love and care into them. It's not that. They're not going to learn that. They're just going to crank out whatever they can to copy the success of this movie. I would be shocked if, I don't know. I mean, just
Well,
I don't think.
That's sort of what I'm like wondering is like, because I almost don't want a sequel to this movie. I like this
I
movie
don't either.
standing alone as it is, and like I feel like if you started, and again, like we said, it's cool when there are other kaiju, but like I feel like in this universe, if you started like bringing in other monsters,
It cheapens this movie.
I think it would. I think it would kind of
Absolutely.
dilute. It would dilute what this movie accomplished a little bit.
I agree,
I agree.
1000%. And I said this. I know Christina's heard me say this 1,000 times. Like, instead of making a film like Hollywood is totally guilty of this, that is this only objective is to set up the next one or to set up a world. Just make a fucking good movie and then see what happens and leave it alone.
We live right now in a time where content is more important than
Craft
quality of what they're than craft, and everybody needs to keep the content coming out. You need to keep content. You need to keep content. You need to keep content. And this movie doesn't feel like it was made for content. And this movie doesn't feel like. I mean, you could definitely take this movie and branch it into a franchise. I'm sure you'd have to tweak some things. You can't have a Godzilla movie where he fights other monsters and his atomic breath nukes an entire city. Like, you have to nerf that.
You're right.
That fight is over. That fight is over right away.
Good point. Yeah.
But the viciousness of him otherwise, the way he moved, the way he fought, the way he clawed, the way he was snapping at the plane, the way he tried to jump out of the water.
That was spectacular.
All that stuff was cool. You have to nerf that. You can't have that, right? Can you imagine if they did a sequel where he fights another monster? It would be over in 30 seconds. So, and his ray seemed to be as powerful as the ray in Shin Godzilla, and he's 10 times more mobile than that monster was. So, this is a good comment. Like, what do you? And I've been thinking this too, that it could potentially be up for an Oscar. I don't know for Best Picture, but I could definitely see it up for an Oscar for Best Foreign Film.
Oh yeah,
that would be cool if that happened.
It'd be awesome if that happened. I don't really give a shit about the Oscars, but just the cachet of having a Godzilla movie nominated for an Oscar would be so awesome.
Even if it's nominated, that is totally like the icing on the cake.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It probably won't win, but just to get the nomination and the acknowledgement that, hey, man, we love this. This is great. It's making money, and it's an important piece. And I think the fact that we everything we just talked about, the fact that it's Godzilla alone, the fact that it's a period piece, the fact that it's the human drama is compelling, all of those elements combined would make it a contender for at least a nomination for Best Picture. Foreign film,
costume design, set design, sound design. I mean, there's a lot of shit you could probably give that.
True. Totally true.
I agree. And I wonder if part of me thinks the only reason that it wouldn't be is because of the stigma of Godzilla movies to the general the U.S. audience.
I was going to say that
being cheesy crap, when really that's never really been fair, ever. But
I don't know. This movie
that budget.
Yeah, this movie seems to be really kind of defying that though, because like looking at the Forbes magazine headline and just like it's getting universal acclaim from critics, and of course now everybody loves Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes is okay now by everybody.
Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes is our friend.
It's our friend now.
Yeah.
Wait till Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire comes out, then it's gonna flip again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that depends on who you are.
Speaking of Godzilla X
interesting.
Kong, here's a good comment here. I feel Toho is letting Legendary step into cheese so Toho can then correct the course. Yeah, I mean, dude, there's such a tonal difference. David, I know you could go on for an hour and a half, yeah, but there's such a tonal difference between what Legendary's doing and what Toho does. And you take a show like Monarch, which honestly I think is a good show. I didn't like episode 4. I thought it was
I didn't either.
wheel spinning, but all in all, yeah, right. All in all, I think it's a good show. But look, they showed the Castle. They showed the test, the nuclear test in both these movies. In Minus One, they showed the nuclear test that mutates Godzilla, and in Monarch, they showed the nuclear test that they used to kill Godzilla. And that right there shows the total tonal difference of these two franchises. One, in the Japanese version, created a horrible monster. The other one, makes their pet monster
did nothing.
turn stronger. Yeah. So
made him stronger.
Yeah. So I think, look, I don't hate the Legendary stuff. It has its place. It's fine. It's popcorn nonsense.
It's fun.
But they will never do a movie on par with when Toho wants to really do a serious movie like this movie in like 54. I mean, what I wanted for the Godzilla 2014 Legendary movie to be was pretty much the movie we just got.
Exactly, Brian.
And Gareth Edwards even said as much.
Yeah, Gareth Edwards said this. They made the perfect Godzilla movie.
Yeah, he was jealous. I think a lot of people forget, like, if we didn't have this Legendary stuff, which I like the Legendary stuff, I don't really care. If we didn't have this, I would bet you wouldn't have a -1. Just because the popularity that the Legendary stuff has and the toys and the merch, like all that cash, like Toho still gets that shit. So if it wasn't for the Legendary stuff, you wouldn't have -1.
Yeah, I mean, we're not
Toho is they're just printing money with the Legendary stuff. They don't even have to do anything.
Character that they've built.
Yeah.
You make this amazing character, you license it out, and you make the money back.
So you guys said it best. It has the MonsterVerse has its place. Not with me personally, but it has its place. And this movie, to my great delight, was the antithesis of everything Legendary. There was nothing. They didn't take any Legendary. Maybe a little bit CGI, maybe some of that things that go on, but. As far as I'm concerned, this is the absolute antithesis of the Legendary Godzilla, and I'm all for it. I'm there for it, man.
I was going to say there are visual references to Godzilla 2014 in this movie, though.
A few.
So I think Yamazaki is basically telling us what his 3 favorite Godzilla movies were. I think it's 54, GMK, and 2014, and I think that's also why he invited Gareth Edwards to have a screening of it. I mean, there are definite visual homages to 2014.
So do we know, I didn't get a chance to look into this. For the CGI for this Godzilla, did they have a motion capture actor for it, or was it all just...
I don't think so. I don't think there was no cap on it.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I
feel like that's more of a US.
That's the
So I
case.
hadn't seen anything, so I was wondering if...
I ain't seen any.
I like the CGI in this movie because it looks like it could have been a guy in a suit that they enhanced with CGI, and I think, to me, that would be the perfect Godzilla effects, is to have a guy in a suit that's enhanced by CGI.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
the Nakajima factor, as Guillermo del Toro said.
Yeah, exactly. Because he behaves like it doesn't look like 100% CGI. There's definitely scenes of it where you're like, I could see that being a guy in a suit.
What I was hoping for, Brian, was like the Boss Coffee 54 Godzilla ad. That would have been my ultimate scenario if this movie was done in that form. But I'm not mad at anything that they did, and John's there was several visual references from 2014. I only saw it once, all those years ago, so I can't even tell you what visual references.
Well, going under the ship for one thing is directly from. Yeah.
That was a beautiful shot,
the use of his tail as an attack. That's kind of a 2014 thing too. And he always used his tail, but.
And Ginza, where he comes out of the smoke, the rubble, I thought that was straight from the trailer, and that was gorgeously done.
Yeah. This comment's true too. I mean, the MonsterVerse did it did reignite Godzilla in the American consciousness, at least. Because
for sure it did. If you remember what 2005 through 2012 was like, it was a barren wasteland. There was nothing happening, and now we're getting everything.
Yeah.
We have
A lot of Godzilla fans.
anime. We have Ultraman anime. We have 2 Godzilla movies. We have a Godzilla TV show. Like, I know people can pick and choose, but we probably should shut the fuck up and just take it all in.
And just be happy. Yeah, I know. It's good. It's good. It's
what
I'm saying, man. It's good time to be a Godzilla fan.
Yeah.
So speaking of all of the Godzilla around, what are we hoping for to see in the world of collectibles? I mean, there's a few things out now, and I just pre-ordered one thing already, but I know Christine's dying for a Sofubi.
Yes, I would like a Sofubi, and I'm holding out for a light up X Plus because I want one with the dorsals popped up, light up. I want that.
Rich, is there an X Plus on the planning stages? Have you seen anything from X Plus?
Not yet. No, not yet.
Rich, how about you? Anything? Anything?
Well, I know. Yeah, there's going to be stuff coming from X Plus for sure. I'm surprised they actually haven't even revealed something yet.
Yeah.
But give me a
Death for Real revealed, right? Didn't they reveal Death for Real?
Oh, wait, who did that one? No, that was
Plus. Oh, never mind.
Eggman, I think.
It's cute.
I want a Rick X Plus that comes with the Godzilla, the Odo Island version would be an instant purchase.
Yeah.
An instant purchase.
I would break my X Plus drop for a light up Rick for this one. I haven't bought X Plus in years.
Oh, could you imagine that the light up effects for those dorsals would be?
I would actually, if it was badass, I'd probably bite the bullet and take the gigantic if they did one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
That would be tough to pass up if it looked really good. I pre-ordered the Super 7 one.
Oh, nice! That one looks real good.
I just hope that the figure looks as good as the prototype.
Yeah, that's TBD.
Look, I've reviewed 3 of those figures. For my channel. I passed on it just because none of them have lived up to what the production photos have looked like. And
the photos look better.
And honestly, it's one of those things where I'll just wait and see, because now all of the ones that I bought are on sale for like $55.
Yeah.
And that's about what they should be anyway, honestly.
Yeah.
So that's one I'll probably grab, but I'm going to grab that after it's been out for a little bit and his kind of warming shelves, as they say.
It might be good though. It might be. They might surprise us, because that prototype does look freaking amazing. It looks like an X Plus quality almost. So I'm gonna be optimistic about it. And then if it sucks, I'll just pass it on to someone else.
Yeah. Hey. Does anybody have an answer to this one? Is the monster art's good? I thought we saw pictures of it and it was bad, right? The pictures.
They're half and half. I've seen good pictures and bad ones.
It shit breaks within like a year, just fall apart on your fucking shelf.
Yeah.
So it looks great, but it's gonna look like a junkyard in a year.
That's it, Nav. You got it. That's exactly right.
I'm looking at GMK. His arm is off for some random fucking reason. It's like I don't touch it. 41 years old. I don't play with him, and it just falls off. So don't buy it.
So what I saw from the SH Monster Arts Godzilla Minus One is the prototype looked great. But I think the figure was they made it with the intention that the collector is going to keep his mouth open, because when the mouth is closed, his bottom jaw looks a little janky.
It does. But, it's an underbite.
Yeah, I mean, I know when we see prototypes, that's what we should expect. That's what you're promoting. That's what we should get. But once you put something through a production line, there's going to be differences. And most toy collectors or collectibles and brands put prototypes shown, actual product may vary, so that's the unfortunate part, but
I would buy that collectible as well, a model of the boat with a piece of his head coming out of the water. Yep. I'd buy that.
That's probably gonna be a kit of that.
Bandai of the Shin like zip line. If they did a Bandai like that with him coming out of the water, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what they need for their water park.
Yeah,
Cass will do it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that Yuji Sakai, gets his hands on this and does a model kit, does a 30-centimeter kit.
Yeah, that would be cool. The plane, that was a cool plane too.
It was a cool plane. That was a cool plane. Based
in reality too, which was nice. We didn't get some silly sci-fi thing. It's based on an actual plane.
I liked finding that out, because that was one of the first things I wanted to find out when I got home from the theater after we saw it last week. I was like, is this based on it? And it is. It's based on an actual prototype.
Yeah. If you actually do any kind of deep digging into World War II stuff, every country had the most batshit insane plans for things that a lot of which never came to fruition for one reason or another. But yeah, that's definitely one of the things. This is something my my wife asked me, and I kind of explained it to her, but the title -1 and what does that mean? Because it is a weird name. I'm kind of surprised Toho didn't tweak the name before putting it out. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's hurting it at all, so whatever, but it is kind of a weird name for a movie. What does it mean?
So basically, Japan just lost World War II, got hit with 2 atomic bombs. Their economy's in shit. Just the whole country's just not in a good place. They're at the bottom of the barrel, right?
Yep.
Let's introduce a giant monster and make things worse. So instead of moving back up the ladder after the war, they just slide further backwards.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
It's basically an allegory for your checking account being at 0 and then another bill coming out.
Yeah.
And then you try to go to Taco Bell. Yeah. So yeah, that's how I took it as well. Right. And I think it also works on a personal level for the characters, because all of the characters, for the most part, when we meet them, are all pretty, especially the people in Tokyo. Or, I mean, it took me till the second time I saw it to realize at the beginning, that's his house he's standing in front of when he goes back to Tokyo. Mm-hmm. That's just completely bombed out like that. And I think it's really cool the way it shows, his living situation slowly improves and his dress slowly gets better, and he buys a motorcycle, which, did you guys think that motorcycle was an homage to the original? Yeah, I thought it was too.
I want to look up and see if it's the same kind of model-ish that Takarada.
Yeah, it might be.
I tried to look it up earlier. I couldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, you can get the title just from Tachibana's character alone, because he chose not to be a kamikaze pilot, and in the eyes of all of his peers in Japan, he was -1 already. Like he shouldn't have been alive. He was like alive but not alive. And then all the things that happened to him in the film, especially after losing Noriko, like he was more than -1. Like his life was just at rock bottom, and then introduced this monster, into the mix. And it's like, I like the title. I think it's great. It makes you think. It makes you talk about it. And how often do we as fans and even non-fans go to a Godzilla film and get inspired to learn about history, to learn about hey, what planes did come out during World War II? Yeah, how did Japan react after the bombings of the cities in Tokyo? How it's so good. It ignites so much curiosity, more than just oh my God, this is a fun monster fight. It's really smart in that respect, and for that reason alone, I think that best foreign film nomination might be in the mix.
What do you guys think about this comment that it's not connected to 54? Because obviously it's not intentionally connected to 54, but I think it concludes in such a way that it could definitely be in that universe, because it doesn't seem like a lot of the general public knew what was going on even after he destroyed Ginza. And I could see this being a thing where like a group of citizens went out and fought this monster and thought they killed it, and he shows up again 7 years later, or however, whatever it is, 8 years later. And they had all thought he was dead, and people that heard anybody talk about it was like, those people are crazy, those people are crazy. Like how in the Star Wars where what is it, episode 8, where the Jedi are sort of, was that real? They really were Jedi? You know what I mean? So sort of something like that, even.
Well, it's a direct reference to the scene in the Diet Building where they're talking about, are we going to tell the people about Godzilla? And they're having that argument. The government officials and the citizens are having that debate whether they should make it public that Godzilla is here. And in -1, they're straight up saying, we're not going to let the public know, because no one wants to take the responsibility for the panic. They literally said it almost word for word. And so yes, absolutely, they took that from 54. And again, it's another dig on the Japanese government
They had mentioned something about that, the Japanese government being always perfect at hiding information or something.
Yeah,
like that.
perfect.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the fact that they did that scene in 1954 and some of the citizens that were the most vocal were women, that was unheard of in the 50s in Japan. So that was a little bit cutting edge and a little bit risque for that time.
And the scene in -1 where he introduces his plan also is very, very similar to the scene in 54 where Dr. Yamane addresses the crowd. I thought that was really similar. I liked. There's a lot of little homages and things in this movie that I thought were really well done, and they didn't really beat you over the head with it. But there are things when you see it in the movie, and you're like, that feels familiar to me, and that's kind of why. So.
Like when they closed the
Yeah,
curtains during his speech.
Yep.
Like that
Yep.
very like
Mhm.
I was like, oh
Yeah.
it's just like the little
Yeah.
things like that they sprinkled in.
I'm surprised they didn't have him fix his tie, like Dr. Yamane does in that scene, where his tie's on the wrong side of his jacket.
They already did that homage in Godzilla 2000.
That's true.
They did?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a scene where Shiro Sano's character is they're talking about like the UFO. He literally he did it on purpose. Like he tucks his tie into his jacket.
Interesting. I'll have to watch. So yeah, because this movie, and it's funny, speaking of 2000, this movie's already made more in 4 days than Godzilla 2000 made in its entire theatrical run.
Wow.
Which is pretty
That's
crazy
great.
in the US.
That's exciting time.
And that had a much wider release.
I think Godzilla 2000 made like 10 or 13 million. I know I read last night that -1 made more already than Shin Godzilla did in its theatrical release.
Wow.
Okay.
But
so it's probably going to pass it today, then I would think, if it hasn't
I hope
already,
so.
if it hasn't last night. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think it was at 11 million last time I checked.
All right. Rich, your mom says the best way to see it is in IMAX. And having seen it in IMAX, I agree.
Yeah.
I've seen every other version except for IMAX, so maybe
Next time.
Go see it in IMAX. Has anybody else seen it again? I'm going to see it again Monday. That'll be 3
Yeah,
for me. Then I'll probably be done.
I'm planning on going on Tuesday.
I'm not sure when, but I definitely need to see it a second time to sort of the things that you guys brought to my attention that I missed that I want to like sort of catch myself, but definitely deserves a second viewing. Fuck, I saw 2014 twice, so I got to see this twice.
Oh, you got to go see it. You got to see this 5 times now.
Yeah.
To put the universe back in balance.
That's right. That's right. No, it's real quick. Keith said he'd see it again too, so that's good. Real quick. Did any of you think that they were going to utilize any of the character names from 54? Like they're going to like say Dr. Sarazawa, Ogata.
Yeah.
I
thought the baby
would do that.
I thought the baby would be.
I didn't think because I don't think they want to directly tie it in. I think
was fine.
I'm not saying they needed to do that, but I was just thinking maybe they were going to do that at some point because certain things. Like I was hoping to find a trilobite somewhere, we did see the deep sea fish rise, like in the beginning of Gorgo, which was interesting.
Yeah. So you know what I thought that was going to be? So when he's sitting there on Odo Island looking in the ocean, and you hear that splashing. I don't know if you remember in the original screenplay, and I think it was actually shot and then deleted from the movie. In the original 54, Ogata and Emiko see Godzilla's tail.
Yes.
When they're standing off in Odo Island, they see his tail splashing in the water, and I totally thought that they were going to that was going to be Godzilla's tail splashing in the water at the beginning.
Ooh, I would have liked that. That was a scene. I don't even know if it was filmed. It was definitely a storyboard where they're standing on the beach and a tail goes right by a rock formation, and they think they think it's part of the rock.
I mean, there's pictures of Takarada and Momoko Kochi like actually standing on the beach, like reacting to something. I mean,
maybe they did film it. Maybe we'll see it someday.
Yeah, I mean, they're putting out a lot of. I wish
Maybe
Mike was here because they're putting out all those 4K releases, and he is like their biggest advocate, Mike and Big Ken. So you never know. Maybe that'll be a bonus feature on one of those.
I mean, you'd have to assume that the footage exists, which is like, again, you can dream because what was it like? How many years ago that that silent sort of like trailer that we never saw from Godzilla Raids Again just appeared, and it had footage that wasn't in the film. So, you can dream.
Yeah.
We can all dream. We can all dream.
So, like,
It's amazing how this movie is way more than just a movie about a monster. Yeah, that's why this movie's good. It's good because it's about more than just a monster. That's what makes it a good movie. Watching two monsters punch each other in the face is exciting, but it doesn't necessarily make for a great movie. So that's me. That's my take. So everybody's, I think we're all going to go see it again for sure. So that's good. I hope it, like I said, I hope it gets a little bit more time in theaters, and word of mouth seems to be super good. I love seeing people on my various timelines that are not Godzilla fans raving about it. One of my friends posted he saw it and just wrote A++++. Everyone should see this movie. Yeah, and I'm just like, that's awesome. So good to see. I'm dragging two non-kaiju friends with me to see it tomorrow. So
that's cool. What's exciting to me is all of us here, we're all pretty much on the same page when it comes to these movies, but it seems like across the fandom, no matter what your tastes are, this movie is satisfying you. Like, I love that. That's really untypical for, usually it divides the community, or there's like a fringe who doesn't like it. I haven't seen any real negative responses to this movie.
Yeah. I mean, there's a segment of older fans, older than me, and I'm pretty old, who seem to really piss on any new Godzilla stuff, whether it's from Japan. I loved it. No, well, I feel like they do it almost as a form of gatekeeping, though, where it's like the old movies are the best. If you like the new movies, you're just settling for less. You don't really know what you're looking at.
That's stupid, because
I haven't seen any. I haven't seen anybody say that about this movie at all, which is amazing. Like, I expected the usual characters to come out and be like, this movie doesn't have the heart of Godzilla versus Mothra versus Godzilla, and like they're two different things. Like, they're almost in two different boxes for me. Like, it's hard for me to put this movie in the same box as Invasion of Astro Monster, because they're so tonally different. Like, they're both good movies,
and that's why I was like, listen, if enthusiasm, that's great. Calling it like the greatest Godzilla movie ever, or the best since '54, I can't do that, because it's so unfair to compare this movie to like anything beyond 20 years ago, maybe, because of how the making of these films has changed over the years, and sort of Toho's attitude just in what they're willing to allow people to do with Godzilla has changed. So I just think that hyperbole is a bit much. But I mean, this movie is very good, and it's definitely probably going to settle in as a top 10 for me. I'm just not sure where it's at yet. I mean, I want to live with it for a little while.
We don't want the same movie over and over again. Like, we don't want the same storyline. Like, we know what goes on in the Godzilla movie, so it's nice to see something that's different.
And Christine, that's totally true. It's different, yet it still stayed true to what we all know about Godzilla. Like, it didn't stray too far off of, like, I'm speaking for myself. Like, it didn't go too much away from what I expect Godzilla to be, and what I've grown to love in Godzilla films. This is pretty much everything that I was hoping for. And and John, I think what people are saying is, like, I don't necessarily think it's the greatest movie since 1954. It's that type of movie that 1954 was. It's that style of film. You could put 84 in that category too. So I think those three films are sort of, very similar in their tone, and, the human drama and things like that. GMK more is a little bit different because it deals with Japanese mythology, and it's wonderful, but I think that's a little bit different. The three that are the most alike are 54, 84, and this one, in my opinion.
They're all grounded very heavily in reality and plausibility, even like with like weapons like the Oxygen Destroyer or the Super X. I mean, it's science and it's military hardware. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, they're really foundationally based in real things. And this movie, I think, was probably the most like of any Godzilla movie. This one is probably the most reality based because there's literally no super weapon. There's the plan to deal with him is based in real science, and it's just ordinary people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should Toho keep doing one-off movies or start a new franchise? To me, I think they both have their pluses and minuses. The pluses are, if you do one-offs, then you don't have to worry about continuity or anything. If you don't do them though, then it kind of gets stale after a while. Resetting every movie gets kind of stale. So I don't know. I'm glad I don't have to make that decision. What do y'all think?
I would just do one-off, some continuance of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, they did leave this one kind of open at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like those little shorts that they've been putting out too. And honestly, if they wanted to do like a straight up 70s vibe, Godzilla silly, like Godzilla superhero style movie, I would 100% go to the movie theater and watch that. The only thing is you're not going to get the acclaim for doing that kind of movie that you're going to get for doing a movie like this, I don't think.
Sure.
But like those shorts are fun. That Megalon short they did was really fun.
The Jet Jack was awesome.
Yeah, they're fun.
I don't think they should worry too much about doing a standalone or a franchise. They should just worry about making a really good, compelling movie.
Yeah.
That's what that makes money. That makes money. A really good, compelling movie, and let the chips fall where they may after we see this movie and we all love it. And I think that's what's going to happen with Minus One.
I would love to see a I guess like maybe like a prequel kind of, I guess you would call it. I want to see the story of the Odo Island Godzilla.
Me too.
Before we get to, I mean, he already has an established legend there. So obviously there's been things for years going on. I would like to see that explored.
I totally, Christine. I'm going to be Leslie Chambers for a minute. Yes. I was going to say that. I want to learn about like expand on the old legend of Odo Island, like they do the sacrifice, the exorcism and send the girl out on the raft and. Why do the natives call him Godzilla? How do they know? How long has he been coming to the island? Like, what's the deal?
How do they deal with him?
That would be something that I would love to see, and I don't know that we'll get it because it seems too sort of very specific and very like. But I'm 100% down for that. And I have to say, Keith screamed in the background, Mothra.
I'm curious what ended up on the cutting room floor, to be honest with you. There was a lot of stuff in Shin they cut out that was not in the original film. Like, it was just animatics. I'm wondering if and when we get the DVD, what else is in there.
Are there more scenes and meetings?
True.
Yeah.
I know I'm in the minority, but God, I hate that movie. God, I hate it.
It hasn't stood the test of time. I liked it when I saw it, but I can't watch it now.
I feel the same way. I more or less liked it. Like 6 out of 10 when it came out, and I just don't ever feel the need to watch that movie.
I think if they would left the stuff they cut out, it would have been a better movie. Like where the Kamada Kun, like the blood gushes and the tires pop, like all that shit they should have just left in. It would have been much more like nightmarish, especially like the blobs of his flesh that were always mutating on the buildings. Like they cut all that shit out, and it's kind of stale, All
right, so I want to wrap up, but I do want to say real quick, because Shin Godzilla reminds me of this. So at the end, when all the people are coming out of his tail or whatever that is, right? So the second time I saw Minus One, I paid very close attention to the end where it shows her neck. And I'm going to pay more attention when I go see it again. But I'm 99% sure that thing on her neck is in the shape of one of his dorsal plates.
Well, it also looked like it was
moved.
It was growing. It was growing into the shape of a dorsal plate.
I was asking.
Yes, it grows out. It starts growing up her neck, and it's got that shape of a dorsal plate on his neck.
I guess
on
I
her
couldn't
neck.
see.
Excuse me.
I couldn't see through the tears welling up in my eyes.
Well, okay. So another thing I noticed that they pointed on a little bit. Because they specifically mentioned it. So I was like, okay. Right after the attack in Ginza, they said something about they were collecting samples from the creature left behind.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, does that have something to do with it? Kind of like 89. or I mean, it could have been radiation fallout, but
Well,
it was
of
moving.
course, you're going to go there, Christine.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
I feel like
collecting samples.
yeah. See here, all right, good. So he agrees with me here. It was definitely in the shape of a dorsal plate. I caught that instantly. So okay, good. I'm glad I'm not. Maybe I'm not crazy because, I thought that's what it meant, and I have no idea what is that supposed to mean? Is she going to turn into a werezilla? Like what? Like what does that mean?
Well,
I don't know.
so between the attack in Ginza and when the final attack where they destroyed Godzilla, that had to have been less than a month. So she got exploded in this nuclear blast.
I know.
And she's recovered
Yes.
that quickly. She have no
Me and
broken
Dutch
bones.
discussed that
Like,
in the
Oh man,
Yeah.
that it was the one thing one of the things I
my one
I
complaint.
didn't like
Yeah.
about the movie. I wish
well,
she would have just been alive. You would have lost nothing with Koichi's story. And all I remember is this, Brian. I don't know if you remember this. When they reveal that she's alive, right? Our theater was quiet
Yep.
except for one guy to my right, probably in the same row. He just goes, "How?"
Yeah.
but it could tie
Yeah.
into this thing on her neck. If she got infected with cells or whatever, or an effect from his atomic blast, maybe because he regenerates, right? We know Godzilla can regenerate super quickly in this film. Maybe I'm thinking.
Does that mean
that
every
has
citizen in Tokyo can do it now, or?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, true. Everyone else would have been.
Nothing. I thought it was just like, you thought she was
So these are interesting things. So look, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And then this one, maybe.
I just thought it was a mark of how that, when you thought you survived the bombings, you actually got radiation poisoning and cancer later on. So
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I
that's
thought too.
also-
Also,
she has
Yeah.
this.
We may
virus
be reading too much into it because
That's what I took.
it's like I said earlier in my comments, it's like when they got the black rain fell on the citizens of Tokyo,
Exactly.
they're going to get cancer and die if they want to keep it based in reality. So
Terrible.
I think we may be seeing something that's not there. I don't know. Who knows?
Well, we're talking about it, which is maybe the point was in the first place.
because when I first saw it, I took it as radiation poisoning, and I was like, oh. But then I'm like, well, wait a minute.
You're like, oh, he
she's
found her
barely
only so she could
injured.
die a horrible death from
I
leukemia.
know.
Yeah.
God.
That poor little girl.
And that was the major aspect. Just really quickly, that was one of the reasons why I didn't like the death fake out, because then Koichi's suicide mission makes him seem more selfish, because like if Akiko lost her mom and he's all that she has left, he should want to live at all costs.
Yes,
for her.
I agreed with that too. I was
So-
like, dude, if he kills himself and leaves this kid with no parent, like,
So I mean, my problems were just story beats like that. That's it. I mean,
my
wasn't
problem
a-
isn't even so much that she did the fake death thing. Well, she didn't do it, but that they did the fake death thing. It was the way that it was shown that she died.
Yeah, 'cause
like
it
if
was,
she
like,
had
literally
got-
how?
like if she fell in the water like she does, or she drops into the water, and then it showed the train car, like almost implying that the train car falls on top of her, and then you never see her again until the end. I could have accepted that more than, dude, she gets blown away by like a gale force wind that is literally pushing
It's a shockwave. It's a nuclear shockwave.
Nuclear wind.
That's literally blowing. It shows it's blowing like steel beams and giant walls and vehicles, and somehow she's okay. Like, so
Somehow we survived.
The weird part with that
I
scene
guess
that
it
is my
happens,
that is my
though.
only complaint with the entire movie is
what
that,
you're
and I'm
saying-
glad she lived. I'm glad that they got a happy ending, but that is definitely my only kind of quibble with the movie.
So, Brian, what you're saying is the dude in Godzilla Final Wars in New York City that got blown away by Rodan, he might still be alive too.
He probably is.
The pimp.
He's probably still pimping.
Probably still big pimping out there. So
He's probably still big pimping.
Still
You
getting
know,
his pink Cadillac towed.
I mean,
there's a possibility
Yeah.
that he's still out there, and there could be a sequel.
definitely, definitely.
I just had
Life
to
certified.
say that, but
Thug Life certified. Thug Life certified.
Oh my god.
All right. Everyone, seriously, thanks everybody for hanging. I guess real quick, we can do real quick. Do final thoughts, David, go.
It was the movie that I was hoping for, and I got it, and I'm stoked. I give it an 11 out of 10 because I'm just so over the moon right now. It might change in the future, but right now, 11 out of 10. The movie I wanted. I'm stoked.
Sweet. Christine, go.
Yeah, I gotta say this is one that I've been waiting for. I feel like a lot of us have been waiting for a serious period piece like this from Toho. Following along what David said, I give it probably like a 9.5 out of 10 for me.
Sweet. Dutch, go.
You know, love getting a vicious, mean, brutal Godzilla. That's the way I prefer my Godzilla to be. You know, the cinematography and the sound mix in this movie blew me away. The staging of the action, like especially in Ginza, like you know, we're panning up and just the camera's doing things that the Godzilla series typically doesn't do, which is usually like point and shoot. So technically, it's great. The story was great. I just have to live with it a little bit longer to kind of see where it falls in with me. But enjoyed it. Good movie.
Yeah, cool. Nev.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. Probably like everybody said, 9.5 out of 10. I definitely want to see it again. I would love to love it in another 3-4 years on like Shin, but time will tell. I think this is the Godzilla that is the most Godzilla film we've had in a long time. So I'm stoked for that.
Yeah, I agree. Mr. Fresh Vinyl.
Hello. Still processing it. Just really happy to have a return to form, more or less, for a Godzilla film. In a nutshell, loved it. 10 out of 10 for me. Right now, you know, I need to see it again. Don't think I'm going to be able to catch it again in the theater unless they extend this theatrical run. So, loved it.
Cool. Yeah, I pretty much agree with all of your assessments. I think it was the Godzilla movie that I have wanted to see for a very long time. I'm gonna give it a 9.5 out of 10, and I hope you know, in 3 or 4 months, whenever it hits streaming, that it is as good as I recall it being when I saw it in the theaters. So yeah, that's how I feel about it. So thanks everybody for watching. Probably do this again in a couple weeks. I don't know. Maybe we'll do a little Christmas special. Who knows? Who knows what we're gonna do? But we're gonna do something. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching, and we will see you all next time.
How about some coffee?
Coffee? I like coffee.